Yeah, so everybody's so different. So I wonder, it's like people stepping in on a conversation. Like I wonder, like what that is, right? That like does everybody just have a certain thickness of rust, and it's just it each individual just has, it takes whatever time it takes for them to kind of work through that layer. Because I was listening to the video we last week, and we were talking about the mind and talking about how we, right, that there's that kind of wanting the highs and the lows versus the wanting just the rest. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about that the mind is telling you that you need to keep going, right? And that you need to, that resting is not enough. And that's something that doesn't sound entirely accurate to me. Like in my experience, the mind
Sorry,
is,
which part doesn't sound as accurate?
well, the part that we're kind of just these passive observers, and the mind is, we're being bowled over by the mind, right? That the mind, it's kind of promoted that way, that the mind wants these grand things, right? And that somehow we're just the victims of this until we're not, and we're the victim of wanting to continue seeking until somehow we decide that we're done with seeking. Or does that make sense? Okay, I'll just go on. Maybe it don't make sense. So like it seems to me that the mind is, like, kind of going back to that passenger analogy, that the mind is just giving us guidance, and there's, and it feels weird to differentiate it, but there's some aspect of our being that's still in charge, and is actually um, just, and is preferring the one route over the other route, right? So let's talk about like the self. So when I was working with Hale, like there was a couple hundreds of us there, right? And he would have people come up, we would do exercises together. People would say, can you find the one that's there, that's struggling or whatever, or suffering? And people would look and no, I can't find it. And there'd be kind of this release. But then, even the next exercise, or you go for lunch and all of a sudden they're back engaged in it, in the self. And it seemed like it was pretty easy to see that, right? To look and no, I can't find that one that I need to protect, or that needs to get enlightened or whatever. that part's easy, and there's kind of a release, short-term release to that. But the challenging piece is the willingness to exist that way, right? To exist being nobody. And
Well, our society's not really set up for it. One.
well, yeah, well, but sure, there's that. But we can be somebody and be involved and still not be invested in it existing beyond this moment.
Right. Like not taking things personally.
Well, not, yeah, so not like when so it's like the advisor, right? So the passengers here, and so there's an event occurring in our life, and the passenger is telling us this, if you know, if this continues the way it is, you're going to be destroyed. Your everything you've established, your whole foundation, your everything you've set up around you is in jeopardy.
Right.
Right. So in that moment, there's kind of a willingness to be okay with that, or a buying into it and then tightening up, right? And strategizing a way to hold it together and maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, ultimately, I think that's what stress is. Right? I don't know if we've talked about this before, but right, stress is just those. It's the mind. It kind of takes on two advisory positions. One, it's telling us that we need for this to happen. We need a certain outcome to happen for us to be okay, for us to remain intact. And the other one is advising us that it's not going to happen, that we're we're not going to remain it. Like, this event is not going to stay that way, right? And so then we're engaged in this huge tension. And so if we, I mean, this one, it can just do whatever it's going to do and say this stuff. But the other one, if we, no, I guess it's one or the other. Anyway, if we just say, thanks for your input, thanks for your guidance, and I'm fine with it falling apart, then that's kind of, it ends there. All right. So that seemed to me, that was the part that was, in some ways, is kind of that, I know we talk about decisions, but it's kind of that point where one lets go. And so, okay, when I look, I see there's no self there, no thing as a self. And so this story I'm being promoted right now is not true. It's about something that doesn't exist. I don't know how I got onto that.
Well, you said you were talking about rewatching our video from last week and wondering if it was really the case.
Yes, that's right. So that there's a part of us that's making the determining factor, right? Deciding. So there's a part of us that's deciding, am I okay with just resting, right? Is it okay to just open to resting and allowing and just dropping the seeking altogether?
Mm.
Or no, I'm not quite ready to drop the seeking yet. I think there's more to get. That that's kind of, I don't know, I think there was a time where I kind of blame that on the mind, that the mind is choosing that. But I think that it's
The mind's
kind of,
choosing what?
well, the mind is choosing to continue seeking.
Mm.
But it doesn't seem that way. It seems like we're choosing to continue seeking. We're just buying into the mind's storyline that there's more to get, because some part of us wants more.
So part of us that wants more is just continuing the seeking.
It's not quite ready to give it up.
So there's
Right?
like
Because
two minds going on. I know what you're saying. There's like,
well, there's the driver and there's the passenger. So in some ways, my passenger now is not really any that much different than the passenger I had 10, 15 years ago. It's kind of feeding me pretty much the same stuff. Right? And but my willingness to invest in it, right? Because I mean, in a sense, you're giving everything up.
you're giving everything up if you give up the seeking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know, because I think life is still going to come at you.
Right. But you, like, yeah, the life that just happens.
Yeah.
But so the difference
Don't you have to
then,
be continually giving up though? It's not like just
yeah,
once you said, okay, I give
absolutely.
up.
Yeah, it's a moment by moment thing.
Yeah. So it's not like you can just decide, okay, I'm giving up. And then that's the end of the story. I live happily ever after in my blissful little surrendered land.
But in some way, there's no after.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of getting the infinity of the moment. It's been kind of here more for me last week. But it's been interesting because I'm kind of, once again, I'm having to make decisions about what my future is going to be. Sounds like, I can stay where I'm living for a few more months, but then I'm going to have to, move again. And so that's a really good one for sending things just kind of like all over the place. Right? Like wondering if I made different choices, if it'd be this or that. But at the same time, kind of feeling relaxed about it. But there's all these choices kind of coming up that, yeah, now I'm kind of like looking at them and wondering, yeah. I mean, I'm not feeling stressed about it, but there's still this piece of, like, I started to go down that kind of rabbit hole, and then I kind of got that, yeah, what if I just don't, like, what if I don't hang on to anything? That's what it was, right? So it wasn't so much, yeah, just I guess it's like letting everything go, but it's been deeper, like on all kinds of levels. Like, I realized, there's like sadnesses that came up around, like, I remember my cat Chessie that died almost 19 years ago, right? There's
Yeah.
always been this really deep sadness there around it. And Shika, my dog, and then, there's been this sadness around not having the little kids in my life anymore, my kids, right, the boys, because they're grown up now, right, they're adults doing their own life, and this sadness, whereas a part of my mind is going like, well, okay, but that's crazy, like, can't you just be happy for what the time I did have with, those times that I did have, which my logical mind knows that, right, but this other part of me has just always felt so much grief. And even like now, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to leave this place. So it's like I'm starting to grieve not being here while I'm still here. Right? And
Yeah.
but like all of it, it's like something kind of clicked. I was doing a dyad with somebody a few days ago, and feeling all this grief, but in it, yeah, it was like somehow the reality of the gifts that I was given those times, right? These beautiful experiences with these beautiful pets and my kids, and like these precious times that just made me sad because I want to still have that. There's, yeah, it's like something. It's just a gentle, slow kind of seeping in thing of allowing myself to really appreciate the gift of that time rather than mourn it and grieve it, right? I mean, it would be like, it's like if you and I are hanging out and I would just be like in grief the whole time we're hanging out because I know you're going to die someday. You're going to be dead someday. Of course, I could die before you, but like, and it's so much of our life. It feels like that's what we do. Like I look back at the times when I was happiest in my life is when I had the least things to hold on to. For real, like least things, physical things, and where it was just then there was more of an appreciation for just the moment somehow, and doing these fun things to make each moment full and rich. And I mean, not that that has to happen, but it's like the more I can see that in people, the more things people have, the more they have to hold on to the stuff, the more unhappiness they feel, right? Like they're just hanging on to it. And it's more just the thought about it all rather than, yeah, being able to enjoy what they have, right? So that's sort of where I came to today, going through kind of like my mind, like my habitual mind journey is to start this anxiousness of like, oh my God, first of all, running through all the things I should have done differently, to make a different outcome. But then I was like, well, no, there's at no point was there a spot where, it felt really authentic or really, I won't use the word authentic.
You have to use it because no one's seen that video, so they have no idea what. And I've already shared my thoughts about it. So I'm not going to do it again, obviously.
Oh, wow, it's okay. But okay, but just feeling like, I'm trying to get away from choosing to do actions and stuff to gain approval from other people. And, you know, so, or do things so that people will like me or something like that, right? Like that's kind of this, being really the nice one, the helpful one, all this, just so that people will. So that's what I mean by the, being more authentic. But so, anyways, I've been just, trying to let that go. It's like, okay, either people are going to like
The
me
word,
or they're
the
not.
word that should not
The word that it said, you should not be named.
be. You know what I mean. I'm not, that word.
That
Oh
word.
yeah, okay, got it.
The word that should not be named.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of an interesting week that way, just in terms of noticing how my mind, the the habitual way of reacting, and I'm kind of, not that I'm pushing anything aside, like I really let myself feel all this grief, but it was, yeah, something shifting, I think. So now I'm kind of like, okay, well, whatever. I'm just not gonna, like, what if I just didn't hang on to anything?
Right. I mean, in some ways, that's kind of what I was pointing to. I guess I find it's easier to even let go of wanting to be somebody. Because then that leaves me trying to be someone that doesn't hang on to things, right? Whereas if you even go a step back and what if I just didn't even hang on to Sean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if I'm hanging on, if I have a thought of being someone who doesn't hang on to things. It's just more like, what if I just don't hang on to it, hang on to anything?
Right.
Like it doesn't, and even like the idea, it's more like letting go of this total idea of, yeah, an identity, because seeing that the identity is usually about seeking approval or something rather than just being in the moment. So I get what you're saying. Yeah, like to just even drop this identity of, which is kind of, like this identity of Michelle, and all these ideas about who that is, someone who's nice, someone who's helpful, friendly, blah, blah, blah. And, like I wrecked my elbow. I haven't been helpful because I can't do anything, right? And it's like,
Right.
and it's okay, right? So
So what if that was just a part of Michelle that likes to get approval?
which part?
Just the part, the part of that personality that arises in you.
that, that if that part that wants approval shows up, you mean? And
Yeah.
Rather than try to push it away. Yeah, I'm kind of not following you. It doesn't really seem to matter right now, right?
All right.
But then as I'm saying that, I'm noticing you nodding up and down. Okay, well, is this what Sean wants to hear? Even, right?
So here, okay, I'm gonna just let's take it all totally off of this specific situation. It seems like there's a personality, right? There's a personality. So the personality of Sean that came into the world 53 years ago, right? Was it even being formulated in those 9 months also, right? I mean, I think science has kind of demonstrated that there is some what's the word? It's not programming, maybe something like programming, right? So even
Uniqueness.
well, yeah. So there's that, yes, the uniqueness, but there's also there's God, why can't I think of the word? So when I'm a child's in the womb, there's they're starting to take stuff in, right? And they're starting to that's starting to kind of be absorbed by them,
That's
right?
true. Yeah, they jump at sounds and whatever
Right.
energies, emotions the mother's feeling, they'll.
Now, even a person has 3 or 4 different children and has pretty much a similar home environment for each one, those 4 are going to have different uniquenesses, right? Where did that come from?
Yeah. I
That's
always think
just,
of mommy, like 13 children in the family. Each one of
right.
them is so unique,
There's
right?
probably all the same environment, right? Same home environment the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Brother chaos. But yes, so I mean, we could talk about reincarnation, and that may or may not be a thing, but somehow there,
Astrology, all of the things that,
all the things, right?
yeah.
So even so, then we come out of the womb, and then it starts are getting I guess getting imprinted. That's the word, imprinted into us, right? So we come out with our uniqueness. Well, we don't even necessarily come out. We start our little amoeba or whatever with our uniqueness, and then we
Usually not an amoeba.
whatever that word is.
A gamete.
Gamete, sure, that's it. So that's a unique, and then we come out, and then we continue to get imprinted, right? And based on our gender, our biology, where we are in the ranking of the children, right? What our parents, whatever their imprint was, and it just carries on, right? And so Sean has had 53 plus years of having this imprinting going on. And so the personality of Sean kind of has its own thing, right? And it so it has its way of engaging with others in the world. And there's the personality, and then there's the kind of like the self, right? So the self kind of is this construct that is, we've talked about that a lot, but anyways, the self is this wanting to remain intact, this idea, whatever. And then there seems to be a third party that's watching it all and aware of it all and noticing it. So I think we were talking about this, so in the spiritual path, we talked about this. I don't know. So the spiritual path, the real gift of the spiritual path is to see the self and see through the self, and to see that it's a flowing activity and not a formed thing that needs protecting and needs building. But we get caught up thinking that also we're going to change the personality on the path, right? And that we're going to make this personality more kind, more caring. It's going to be generous. It's not going to get angry. It's all these things. And that's, it's in a lot of ways is a kind of a little bit of a lesson in futility, in my experience. And so right, so I mean, I do that, right? I right, there's all this thing that's going on with the house, right? And wanting to like, you're just blending right into that background.
Camouflage.
It does look, it's just like this face. Right, so there's a kind of wanting to just for it to go smoothly, right? And to, and there's kind of tempers flaring a little bit and conflicts and people getting annoyed and frustrated. And occasionally that's happened for me as well through this process. But there came a point where that was just fine, right? That's fine. And even the work that I'm in, like social work, right? There's like these personalities that can just like don't take any guff, and they go in and they're very assertive and this and that. And I just saw that that's like the ideal personality, right? Super assertive, doesn't take anything personally, whatever, all this stuff. And for so long, I kind of wanted to have that personality. How can I get that personality, right? And it just doesn't happen. So that's, I know you were just kind of sharing what's going on in your week, and but that just kind of came to me that like sometimes like we do things to get approval, and that's that's our personality. I mean, at least that's my personality, right? And there's probably kind of an awareness of it, and there's a lot of the Sedona method, and can I just welcome wanting approval, and right, and
Yeah.
but it still doesn't go away, right? It just seems to to still play itself out.
Yeah, but there can be less suffering around it, right? Like for me,
Yeah. Yes.
anyway.
So let's
Like, you know, like this
hear your
scenario,
take
or
on it.
you know, like I could have, like in the past, I could just take that and just go with it and go on a wild, crazy ride of, you know, just like just oh my god, and this and that, and yeah, I'm more relaxed about it all now. It's like, oh well, this is just what's gonna happen.
So, but like, okay. So is there like a conscious affirming of the will that you're not going to do things for approval? Or is there just less kind of needing approval from people?
It's more like just trusting. I'm just, you know, feeling like I can just sit back and enjoy the ride and just see where it takes me, right? Instead of needing to be in control of stuff,
Mm,
control of people, control, you know, like it's exhausting.
right. The getting approval in order to have control or try and control
Yeah.
the
And like,
situation.
you know, like you're talking about, it's interesting talking about social work and stuff. I can relate in terms of being a teacher. Like, I never felt like I was the right personality type for as a teacher. I'd see so many people that were just like, oh wow, you know, and then there's like for years of trying to be more like other people, be more like these other people and acting in these ways and you know, whatever it is, and it's exhausting,
Yeah.
right? So and can I just drop it and I'm just going to be myself? And I mean, I kind of did that for a bit where I just, you know,
It
like,
feels like we're talking about the same thing.
yeah, we are. I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, just drop it and
Mm-hmm.
be the personality that you are.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it was interesting, like all this grief that was coming up because yeah, I was doing a dyad with someone who just lost a really, you know, like a real precious pet that, you know, and I'm just like, whoa, she just brought up all this grief and sadness and, you know, over Jessie who died like 19 years ago now, I think. Finn was a year old.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, like, so what is that? What is that that's still so strong? But there's a piece there about, that's what I was saying. You know, it feels more like it's just, there's a piece about feeling like having to hold on to something. So much so that I can't just appreciate the gifts, right? Like I'm thinking about, you know, having to move again and it's like, oh man, you know, wouldn't it be nice to just find a place? But at the same time, I look at my life and it's been a constant move from one place to another. But because of that, I've had amazing places that I've lived in.
Yeah, you seem to enjoy your places.
I do. I don't so much enjoy having to move. Or like, you know, sometimes you know, it's there's that piece of worrying, okay, well, now am I gonna ever find something that it has this feature over again or that feature? But it's in every place is different. None of them are perfect. None of them are like the, you know, just like people maybe. You get a visitor.
Yeah, a little mouth. How could you tell?
You're looking down at something. Got a little mouse there.
Yeah. He's like, what? You're not supposed to be here. It's nighttime. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't let you know.
So
Yeah,
it's
that seems to happen.
and looking at the pictures of the house, like I'm sad. It's
Grieving
brought
that.
up a lot of memories.
Yeah.
Um, and even like the boys too. And Finn, it's interesting because he, you know, Scott is selling the house in Wolverton at the same time. He just put it on Market Prairie on the same day. So Finn said, it's like I'm leaving my childhood behind all at once.
Am I gonna have to delete that
I'm
out
sure
now?
it's fine. It'll be okay.
What?
I don't think you'll need to edit that out.
For the 5 people that watch this.
5 people, I know, right? I did my hair though, so I look okay. So I can go back and watch myself.
Yeah. I look good.
Well, just that I would look really bad before. No. See, there's that personality. I'm gonna
Right.
go with it. But yeah, so seeing pictures of the place and all the memories and how much I love it there, right? So there's part of me thinking, well, oh, it's like if we could just pick up that house and move it somewhere down in the coast here, then we could all live in it and each have our own little spot and space, right?
Yeah,
You
we'd
and
have to
Mark, you'd have
we have to divide it into 4 and move one little piece over there, one little piece on the island,
right.
where each different person wants to live.
Well, there's that, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that just, I don't know, like I had that, I think I just telling you about that, and there's also this thing like, wow, there's this house and I probably won't ever be able to afford such a thing, right? And you're sure you're doing the right thing letting it go, but I never, it's just this holding on for the future and
Right.
some imagined future.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mind goes forward, and then this is how it will feel. This is what this imagined future will feel like. And then it's like, oh, that does feel really good. Like, it would be nice to have that.
Yeah. But yet none of us, we don't want to live there right now. Right?
Right.
For
But
Mama.
someday, yeah,
But
Mama does.
someday.
Yeah, it's just trying to hang on to things.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be the theme.
It is. It's about
The
hanging
theme of
on.
the theme of the conversation.
Yeah. And not trusting that the future's, it will just be another experience. We'll have good parts and bad parts to it, just like now, right?
Yeah. So what is that? Why do we? I mean, obviously that's just absolute logic. The future is going to have experiences,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so why?
I'm smoking weed upstairs.
Yikes! It's I don't know. I think that's kind of this biological piece, right? That the kind of self-preservation piece. It's always looking out, like the scouting party. The scouting party that's going out and looking and and the future is unknown, and unknown is not a guarantee of goodness now, even though it's not necessarily completely all good or whatever. It's better than risking something risking the potential for badness
Yeah,
on the
because
horizon.
it can't just all be uh, being sedentary, because there's a lot of nomadic people that, I mean, we descended from nomadic people originally, right? Hunters,
Mhm.
gatherers. They wandered around and they didn't have a lot of stuff.
No, but they did kind of have a set plan, right? So we go here
That's true.
in this season because there'll be food to eat. And
That's
if we
true.
and if we stay here, we've used up all the food here, and we're gonna die. Yeah, there was. It was. Did you ever listen to the Shinzen Young? I think I played it for you a bit, and it wasn't really your interest. But he talks about the ancient cultures and how there came a point in humans' history. So for the longest time, life was uncomfortable, right? You're sleeping on rocks and windstorms and snow, and like life's uncomfortable.
Mm.
And he said that it seems like there came a point where humans could either try to make life more comfortable or try to come to peace with the discomfort. And he talks about how kind of a lot of the indigenous cultures, that was more their route. They went a way of making peace with the discomfort.
Mm.
And he says, and then you'd have like, even sometimes you'd have ceremonies that were even that cranked up the discomfort, right? Like sweat lodges or the sun dance, and in order to even become more at peace with discomfort. And there was a the price to pay was uncomfortable, but his take of it kind of is you're more connected, right? And you're in it. Whereas the
Yeah,
other
and
route,
because they seem to have found a way to live in balance with
right? So the other
the
route
environment,
is you make life more comfortable, right? So you build
right? Like the
roofs,
Roman Empire,
the Roman Empire, right? So then,
where you keep building until you wipe yourself out.
right, and and then nature kind of becomes an adversary in a way that
Yeah.
that you're looking to change it, and you got to protect yourself from it. So you never quite um, at one with it,
But you're comfortable.
but you're comfortable on the outside,
Right.
not necessarily on the inside.
That is really interesting. Yeah, you look at all the indigenous cultures. Look at the Aboriginals in
The,
Australia.
the desert, and
Yeah, like that's got to be some of the most inhospitable landscapes, and they seem the most where they were. I don't. Yeah, just really at peace with themselves and their lives, and connected.
right. So that's maybe that's kind of a part of us that wants comfort, right? And kind of sometimes or stuff
Yeah,
enhances our comfort.
we don't want to end up living under a bridge.
Right, that's not very
Always be the
comfortable.
image that comes up, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I was doing this course, and I had this teacher, and he was just sharing with the class that was his greatest phobia, was ending on the street. I just looked at him like, oh my God, that seems very freeing to me. But I think that's pretty common.
What, people ending up on the street?
Well, that the fear, right?
Well, it's
Is
growing though too, right? Look at how many more people are homeless.
Yeah, houseless.
houseless.
I always said that when I worked at the housing society and people would talk about homelessness, and I said, well, because they would take them and put them in a home, a structure, and then some of them just didn't feel like a home,
Mm.
and sometimes out there. Anyways, what was that? I was gonna say something about the. Yeah. So.
But living under the bridge, and that's your greatest. I think that would be awesome. I mean, free.
Well,
Don't let Barb watch this one.
no. But remember I talked to you about that fellow, the man that gave up money.
Mhm.
Yeah. So he was kind of looking to really simplify his life, and he was just gonna get by, and he had this, I think it's like $20 in his pocket, and he and that was kind of his safety net, and he was always focused on his $20. And then one day it sunk in for him that that wasn't his safety net at all, and that was making him miserable. So he actually took the $20 and he just stuck it on a phone booth somewhere and let it go. And he says, after that, then he felt a lot freer.
He didn't feel hungry.
Yeah, sure, hungry. Yeah, I mean, you should listen to the audiobook. I mean, he had ways. I mean, he would go in garbages, places throw away a lot of quite good food, and
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, it was interesting because there's this one on this tangent, but the story he tells of he'd kind of set up this little cave in this one of this federal parks in the deserts, and the park ranger came along and so, you can't stay here. You've outstayed your 2 weeks or whatever you're allowed to stay. And he says, so he's giving him a fine. He said, well, I don't have any money. I'm not going to pay your fine. I don't have any money to pay fine. So then they went and he's in front of a judge. He took him because the park ranger, he didn't know what to do with this guy, right? He just had to do his job. And there's this guy that was a total anomaly. And he says, you're like, who do you think is doing more damage to the earth? Me with my life, or the other average person out there? And the judge said, yeah, I can see that, but you just can't be staying there. Says, here's a fine, so I can't do a fine. He says, how about if I do community service? And he's like, okay. So then he picked a place where he actually did community service all the time anyways. And so he just went there and did his community service.
Oh, because he was doing it anyway.
He was doing it. And then he just found a place farther in the desert to go and live.
Well, yeah, because I've been looking at that too. It's like we just have all agreed. Well, we were born into this agreement that's there that this is how people live and this is what you do. And we've already allocated all the land has been divided up. This is who owns what and what. And people that just decide, well, no, go and live in the woods. And we're like, so, oh, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. We're like, why not? You know, well, that's not how it is because we made these rules. But it is, it's like, when you look at these beliefs we have, like that's one of the biggest ones that we have, that there's a certain way that we have to live. We can't just go and live off the land anymore. Right? I mean, it's getting harder and harder. Like there's this really beautiful cabin here on the ocean. this guy named Steve was living there, and he actually died in his cabin a couple of years ago. And he built this beautiful house out of driftwood and glass and stuff. And that's what he did. He just went there, built this house, and was living there.
It's not his land.
It was crown land.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, but a lot of places people do that, and like they just go in and take it all down. Right. I don't know why they didn't take his down. But sort of now it's a memorial to him, so you're allowed to visit, but you can't stay there. But so but that idea of people just going into the woods and living off the land, it's against the law, right? Like you can't do it, right?
Yeah.
But why not? Like this, yeah, it's interesting though, just these rules that we all agree to that we don't even know that we've agreed to.
Yeah. Our forefathers agreed to them.
Yeah, that forefathers, all the white males.
Yeah, I said fathers intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. So is it getting too dark to see me? Do I need to go inside?
I don't know how much longer we're going to go.
I guess it's. Oh yeah, 9:46 already. Okay.
All right. I'm going to end the recording now.
Yeah.
This has been a very interesting meanderings.